So again, welcome back everyone. This is day 15 of the Gita Gyan, Essence of the Bhagavad Gita, level 1. So today is also the auspicious Tithi of Vijaya Dashami. So Vijaya Dashami is celebrated, it's marking the victory, it's victory day, marking the victory of Lord Ram over Ravana. This is the day Lord Ram shot the arrow and killed Ravana. So Ravana represents the lust, his life is like that. So he's very learned, he's very powerful, very learned in many ways. He knows the Vedas, but still he couldn't conquer his lust. So because of that, he actually everything that he had was destroyed. And this is a lesson for us also. So in the same way, just like how lust cannot be, Ravana had 10 heads, and these 10 heads represent the different types of lust which will come. And when Rama shot the arrows at Ravana, he shot them on his head. One by one, the heads were being ripped off. But the moment one head gets cut off, another head pops up again. So this is the nature of lust. So lust cannot be satisfied. It will go on and on and on. So if you satisfy it, it will again pop up. It will satisfy it again, it will pop up. So the way to conquer lust is to shoot the arrow at the stomach. So the stomach, when Lord Ram shot the arrow on Ravana's stomach, that's where the Amrita was kept. So that's why when it shot, he died. So in the same way, lust is like you have to, if you want to conquer lust, one has to aim at the root cause of lust or the fuel. So just like when fire is burning, simply giving more fuel to the fire is not going to satisfy, it's not going to abate the fire, it will only burn brighter. So in the same way, if you want to douse out the fire, you have to stop giving it fuel. So in the same way, to conquer lust, we have to conquer this lust within our heart. The lust in our heart is like Ravana, and we have to work on that. So this is, for example, understanding Bhagavad Gita, following spiritual practices. All this is aimed towards addressing that lust within our heart. Remember, it's karma, one of the root causes of why we are here in this material creation. So with that, let's begin day 15. So dedicated to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, Founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. We'll say the prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadramai Sri Sri Nitai Sundagaura Hari Panchatattva Ki Jai. And also by the blessings of Sri Sri Radha Shamasundar and Lalita and Vishaka, the gopis. This is from our Vrindavan temple. This was for one of the festivals. I believe it was Radhastami festival. So very beautiful deities. This is one of the early deities that we had in the International Society of Krishna Consciousness movement. And Prabhupada was very attached to these deities. So we begin with Gita Mahatmya. Sa mukta sa sukhe loke karmana no palipyate mahapapati papani Gita dhyayi karoti chet na kinchit sprishyate tasya nalini dalam ambasha. Translation: a person who is devoted to studying the Gita is liberated and happy. So if you want to be liberated and if you want to be happy, so this is an example, to be devoted to studying the Gita. Although acting in this world, he is not implicated. So here, this is a definition of one who is sthita prajna. That means he is not affected by the three modes of nature, which we discussed yesterday. Even if by chance a person who studies the Gita happens to commit extremely horrible sins, he cannot be affected by that, just as a lotus leaf cannot be touched by even a drop of water. So this is the Lord's protection to the devotee who is dedicated towards spiritual upliftment. So of course, a person cannot continue to commit sins in the strength of the holy name. So one cannot act in this way and still continue to commit sins. One has to be repentant. Accidental mistakes and fall downs are excused by the Lord. But one has to be doing this in a spirit of repentance. So the Lord gives his protection, and in this way, one is very quickly purified of all sins. And we begin with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Let's recap a little. Chapter 14. Yesterday, we talked about the three modes of material nature. And this was the topic. This was the title. So here are the subtopics. So here it began with Prakriti Jnana for Param Gati. So Krishna tells Arjuna, now try to understand this material creation, how it all came about. This material, how Pradhan changed into Prakriti, and then from Prakriti to Mahat Tattva. So by understanding all these concepts, which is all part of Brahman, you will develop further understanding towards the Param Gati. Param Gati means the ultimate abode, the ultimate knowledge. So these are basically details. It's not necessary, but it's not crucial. So these are further details for one to further strengthen one's faith and understanding. So as we go step by step, right, we can further strengthen our understanding, and in this way we are able to make further advancement. So then Jnana, Brahman, Prakriti. So then Krishna gives details about this Jnana. Remember in chapter 13, we already defined what is Jnana. Jnana is to understand what is matter, what is spirit, who is the enjoyer, and the Kshetra, the place of the body and the place, and also to understand Brahman and Parabrahman. And that is called Jnana, knowledge. And the goal of knowledge is to achieve the Supreme Lord, who is also called Jnaya, right? The word Jnaya means the goal of knowledge, and he is the Parabrahman. So or Purusha Uttama, the supreme enjoyer. So Krishna in chapter 14 goes more detail. He talks about Brahman and Prakriti. So how Prakriti evolves from all the different unmanifested stage to the manifested stage. We spoke about all these things. And then at the end of it, he talks about how the Supreme Lord is the seed-giving father of the living entities who are impregnated into Prakriti, material energy, so that the jivas can enjoy their desires, what they have wanted to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord. So here in the material creation, this loka is given for them as a playground. And to understand also how this nature of Prakriti is. So Prakriti has three parts of its nature. consists of the three modes. So if you remember, Sattvam, Rajas, and Tama, which is the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So we spoke about this introduction to this, where we talked about the definition of these three modes, the qualities of these three modes, what is the end result of these three modes, the characteristics and the end result of these three modes. And then we also heard about how when someone dies situated in these three modes, what does he attain? So this is the three modes of nature. And then Krishna talks about transcending the three modes of nature so that one can attain Param Gatim, the ultimate obtainable, which is the Supreme Lord. So transcending Triguna. So Krishna talks about how one who has transcended these three gunas, he is able to understand clearly the difference. So then Arjuna will ask, how do we recognize this person? So then Krishna talks more about what is called the Sthita Prajna, to understand the transcendentally realized person, the person who is situated in Brahman. And Krishna will, at the end of all this, 1426, he will say that the Bhakti Yoga sa uchyate, the means of transcendence. This is the means where one can very quickly attain this transcendence and go beyond these three modes. And in this way, one can attain the ultimate goal, Param Gatim. And who is this ultimate goal? Krishna defines that you will attain me in 1427. And then we also heard the story of Mrigari the hunter as a practical example, how one who is initially even situated in the mode of ignorance, very quickly, by following the process of bhakti, he was able to transcend the three modes and attain Brahman realization. So the takeaways were Mother Prakriti, Krishna the Father, the three gunas, quality and results. By bhakti, we can transcend the three gunas. Krishna, the basis of Brahman. So that he establishes very nicely in this chapter. So now we will continue with chapter 15. The yoga of the Supreme Person. Purusha Uttama. So Purushottama Yoga. So who is this Purushottama? So many places already discussed how Krishna is the Purusha Uttama. And we remember this diagram. So in this model, we showed how Bhagavad Gita speaks about 5 different topics, right? How he speaks about Ishvara, the controller, and about Jiva, the living entities. So both are spirit. And then we spoke about how the Jiva wants to enjoy in this separately from the spiritual energy. So in this way, when the Jiva, he comes to this material creation, he performs karma, activities. We have already spoken about Prakriti. We have spoken about the Jiva, we have spoken about Ishvara, we have spoken about the connection between Jiva and Ishvara, yoga, all of that. And in chapter 13 and 14, we went into detail about Prakriti, right? Of course, Kala was also discussed here and there. And so Jiva, this Jiva, when he enters into Prakriti, Father is the Supreme Lord. I'm the seed-giving Father, Krishna says. And when this Jiva is impregnated into Mother Prakriti, which is Durga, then under the purview of time, Kala, so what does he do? He performs activities. And these activities are called karma. And by performing these activities, he gets snared by the process of birth and death. He gets entrapped by the reactions of karma and takes birth continuously and dies continuously. And in this way goes on, trying to satisfy his unlimited desires. So today in chapter 15, this topic will speak more about karma, about the nature of these activities which the living entities perform in this material creation. The conditioned living entities perform in this material creation. So this begins with this verse. I'll just say the verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Moolam Adashakam Ashvatam Prahur Avyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnyani Yastam Veda Savedavit. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. So one who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. So what is this? This is Krishna gives an analogy. There are lots of, this is, after all, Bhagavad Gita is very poetic and all. So it's full of poetic analogy to help us understand. So when we talk about a banyan tree, Arasamaram, it's a very complicated looking tree, isn't it? You can see, even if this is upside down. So a banyan tree itself, it has so many branches, so many down growing branches, up growing roots. So in this way, it's very, and one single banyan tree can actually make up the entire forest. The way the tree grows is like the one single tree actually can actually, the diameter can expand until it covers an entire forest. So this is the banyan tree. But here we have an upside down banyan tree. So where have we seen such a banyan tree? Upside down. Have you ever seen an upside down banyan tree? We will talk about that in a while, right? But what he's saying here is, it's upside down and the leaves are like the Vedas. And one who knows this is the one who knows what the Vedas are about. So let's try to understand what Krishna is trying to say here, what he says next. So he's describing further this banyan tree. The branches of this banyan, so we know the leaves are like the Vedas. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, just like the banyan tree. See, you can see the branches, they extend upward and downward. So very complicated banyan tree. Nourished by the three modes of material nature. So you could say the root of this banyan tree is the three modes of material nature. And then he says how the twigs are the objects of the senses. So the branches are growing, and then from there twigs will come. So the twigs are the objects of the senses, the tanmatras, the sense of here, the enjoyment of the form, enjoyment of the sound. So basically sense objects. We want to enjoy things like we see, like a person sees a beautiful car or something, they like to see it, or they like to enjoy hearing nice music, or they like to do something, eat nice tasty food. So these are all sense enjoyments. So this is like the twig. And you can imagine in a banyan tree like this, how many twigs there must be. Very complicated network, isn't it? So these twigs can be categorized into, right, for example, economic development. We want to get more and more economic success. It can be also looked into as religiosity or sense gratification. One wants to enjoy things, right? So it can fall under either pious activities or impious activities. Depends on one's how he is nourished by the three modes. So sometimes if it's in the mode of goodness, he may try to be pious. Sometimes if it's in the mode of passion or ignorance, he may tend to be impious. This tree also has roots going down. So not only it's being nourished from the top by the sattva, rajas, and tamas, the three modes, it is also traveling downwards. So it's a very complicated tree. And these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. So there are many things which binds the person. These many sense gratification and all that, it's also bound by various different fruitive actions. So actually, what are they? For example, the fruitive actions are either separated into pious activities or impious activities. So what Krishna is actually trying to explain here, he's trying to say that our karma, our activities, which we do in this world, is like this banyan tree. It is endless. it goes on. It has its roots from the three modes of material nature, and also the roots are extending downwards continuously. So it's no end. It's going on and on and on and on. So one is continuously performing these activities, and there are in between this there are so many twigs and fruits. So the sense gratification, the economic development, and all these things are there. And the leaves are described as the Vedas because the Vedas, 75% of the Vedas is dedicated, or at least not 75, 60% of the Vedas are dedicated towards these kind of activities. Karma Kanda. Karma Kanda means fruitive, materialistic activities, which is something to do with economic development, mundane religiosity, mundane piety, and things like that, how to enjoy better. So like that, if you find in the Vedas, there are many, many, many verses which talk about many things. So this is basically the foundation of human society here. So all this is given so that one can try to satisfy his desires. So this is called ritualistic karma kanda activity. So therefore there are yagyas, sacrifices given for different sense gratification, enjoyment, and all that. If one wants them, well, this is the way to do it, and the legal way to do it. So this is mentioned in the scriptures, known as karma kanda. So this is endless. It just goes on, and you can see how the branch is separating from one branch to another, and it looks extremely complicated, the network of twigs and branches. So in this way, one activity leads to multiple reactions. So it becomes very complicated. So that's why this karma is not something which is easy to understand. We cannot directly, specifically say that why a person is going through a certain situation. It could be due to mainly one item or few, but it's usually due to many, many activities, many, many things in the past, which are all intertwined perfectly in order to give us exactly what is due to us. So that is how the universal justice system works. It goes beyond time. It's like throughout, from the beginning of time until now, it's continuing. So the justice is never lost. So then 15.3, the real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. It's difficult for us to understand where this tree begins, where this tree ends, right? So therefore Krishna says, no one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. So if we want to trace back our beginning of karma, it's impossible to trace. We do not know where it began, where it starts, or where it continues. So this is, of course, the Lord knows it, right? But this is for the rest of us. It's difficult to understand. So, and it becomes extremely, because we have had many, many lifetimes. This is, one could say, millions and billions and trillions of lifetimes. We have been taking different births in this material creation. So therefore, we have a huge storage of various karmas, which is extending millions of lifetimes. So this example here of the upside down banyan tree, right? So I'm going to tell a story now, which will make this clearer, right? So basically what we are trying to do, we are all searching. In the jivas in this material creation, we are searching and searching and searching for various ways of sense gratification. So we are trying to enjoy pleasure in this material creation of the Lord, separate from the Lord, trying to enjoy the fruits separately from the Lord, when it's not even ours. It's everything created by the Lord for our purpose. So here's a story. This is a story about a king who had a very nice jewel. Of course, he had many, many jewels, but he had one particular diamond, a sapphire rather. This sapphire is very beautiful, very large. So, and the one I'm showing here is a very famous one, the blue, the heart of fire or something. So anyway, he gave this necklace to his daughter, princess. So on her birthday. So this princess was very happy. So she took this necklace and then she wore it. And one day she happened to go for a picnic with her friends. And then in that area nearby the river, she took a bath. And when she was bathing, she took off this necklace, and together with the rest of her clothes, she kept it at the bank. So, but what happened was when she was bathing, a bird came, a jackdaw or magpie, thieving magpie. So a magpie kind of a bird came, and magpies, this kind of birds, they are attracted to shiny things. So when it saw this necklace, it caught this necklace nicely, neatly. It took it from the heap of clothes, and it flew away with the necklace before anybody could stop it. They all cried out, but then it couldn't. And then that's it, gone. Such a huge, wonderful necklace. So of course the princess came back crying and everything. And then the father, the king, he thought, well, the birds, this is the type of magpie, it will not go beyond the borders of this kingdom. Usually they don't migrate, they remain around here. So, and sometimes it may just drop it. So we don't know. So then he made an edict. He instructed his ministers to go and announce to everyone, we will give a reward. Whoever finds this necklace will have will get so much of wealth, and then that person will get royal, maybe a datuk shape or something like that. We don't know. So a royal kind of blessing. So then, in this way, it was spread, but nobody could find it, even despite the announcement made. It was not found. Then one day there was this man who was a simple farmer. So he was walking, and then he was walking by the bank of one river. So, and then he was walking by, and then it's a pond actually, not a river, a pond. So when he was walking by, he happened to just look out. He knew about this necklace. He was thinking, it would be so wonderful if my life will change, life-changing experience. I could probably even get the hand of the princess in marriage. Then even I can become a prince, and I can also become a king. So in this way, he was building castles in the air. So he was thinking and imagining all kinds of things. So as he was walking, he happened to look outside in the river, in the water, and to his surprise, he saw a shimmering light inside the pond. And then immediately he thought, whoa. And then when he looked at it closer, he could see that something like the necklace was under the water. So then he thought, whoa, okay, this is my lucky day. I thought about this, and then somehow I'm being blessed. So what he did, immediately he left the bank and entered into the water, waded into the water, tried to grasp that necklace where he thought it was. But the moment he entered into the water, the sand was muddy. So the entire clear water became muddy, and the necklace disappeared. And then he tried to grope around the area where he thought it would be, but he could not find it. No matter how much he groped, he couldn't find it. Then he went back disappointed. He came out of the river, and he was thinking about what could have happened. Then suddenly again, when the water settled, he could see the necklace again within that water. So again, he tried to do this. He entered into the water, same problem. The moment he entered, the water became muddy, and then again he came back. So in this way, he was flabbergasted. He didn't know what to think. But while he was doing this, it so happened that in that area, there was a sage who was sort of meditating and performing his pious activities. So when that happened, this sage opened his eyes and he thought, what is this disturbance? And then he saw that this man is wading in the water, and then he's coming out, and then he's wading in the water again, trying to look for something, and then he's coming out again. And then the sage told the man, hey man, can you wait for a while? What are you trying to do? Then the man said, well, I saw this necklace in the water, so I'm trying to take it. But the moment I go into the water, it disappears. So then the sage smiled, and then he told something to the man. Anyone can guess what he told the man?
It's an illusion, Prabhu.
Yeah, illusion. So then how does he explain the necklace was in the water? How did he explain that he saw it?
Wait for the water to become still, I suppose. I do not know much.
Yeah, but he got that part right. So the sage said, "Oh man, look up, don't look down. Don't search for it down, search for it up." Then he said, "What do you mean, look at it up? The necklace is in the water." "Yeah, it's in the water, but it's not in the water. That's just a reflection of what you see in the water. The real necklace is hanging on top of a branch of a tree. So this is the reflection that you are seeing. That's why when you enter into the water gets disturbed. You're not able to grasp the necklace." So the man, he thanked the sage. He was very happy. He looked up. He saw the necklace indeed hanging over there. And then, after that, happy ending. So this is the story of that. So in the same way, what we are trying to do in this material creation, so that's why Krishna is saying, we are trying to search, we are going down, 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 upside down tree. This is an upside down tree. We are trying to search for so many things, trying to search. We are all searching for something. If I were to ask all of you, what are you all ultimately looking for in our lives? What are we all actually searching for in our lives? If I ask you this question, we may get many answers. Anyone wants to give a try? What answers you would give? If a genie could come, if the Lord comes and says, "What do you want? What are you all ultimately searching for?" What would we say? I think we have asked this before at the beginning of the Gita Gyan, probably. Yeah, if I remember correctly, some people will say, I remember one Mataji mentioned that she wants health, right? Another person mentioned that they want peace, right? So ultimately, the purpose that we want money or society or health, material possessions, the purpose we want it is so that we can enjoy it. So, and also in the same way, we want health. The moment we get health, what will we do? We will try to enjoy life better, isn't it? So what will we do with all these things? So ultimately, we are trying to, and if some people will say peace. Why they say peace? Because currently they are not peaceful. So why would they want peace? They want peace because they want to enjoy life. So therefore, peace is just a stepping stone for one to get happiness. So therefore, we are all looking for happiness. Why we are all looking for happiness? Because remember, we are part and parcel of the Lord. Being part and parcel of the Lord, we have His qualities. His quality is, Purusha, and He is Satchit Ananda. Ananda, we know about our quality of being eternal, right? And so Ananda is blissful. One is always blissful. So the soul's nature is to be happy. It's to look for happiness. That's why we are always looking for happiness in our life. It's the nature of the soul. It's inherent. It's part of our qualitative makeup. But because we are trapped in this material body, which is dukkha, not opposite of happiness. Our body is not a source of happiness for us, isn't it? Whatever which is in this material creation, it's an opportunity for us to try to get the happiness, but all the time it is a disappointment. We get all kinds of problems from our body, isn't it? It creates situations, the moment we fall down, we scrape our skin, and then we get pain, we get that ache, this ache, that ache, all kinds of things. And it's basically the acharyas describe that this body is simply a bag of skin which contains mucus, pus, stool, and urine and blood. So it's basically this is a bag of containing all these auspicious elements. So not auspicious, inauspicious elements. Nobody likes pus. Nobody likes urine. Nobody likes stool. Nobody likes all this blood and all. Yeah. So it basically what's inside our body, and it creates a lot of problems for us. So therefore, we are looking and looking and looking for happiness. We are digging deeper and deeper in this forest of banyan tree, trying to find sense gratification, which we think will give us happiness. So this is our illusion. So therefore, actually, happiness is there. True happiness is there, but it's not to be found in the reflection. No matter how much we search for it in the reflection, we will never get it. It's like a mirage. When a person searches for water in the desert and he thinks that there is an oasis there, he goes there and he's going to be frustrated. So in the material world, our search for happiness is bound to be frustrated at every level. But still, we are covered by illusion so strongly that we think we will get happiness after the next project or the next project or the next project. So this is called Maya. So therefore, there is happiness. Krishna says, don't look for it in the material world. The real happiness is there. It is whatever that's in this material creation. It is simply a reflection, a perverted reflection. We say perverted because what is right and left in the real world is the opposite for right and left. In the, when you look at the mirror, you take your right hand, but when you see in the mirror, you are taking your left hand, isn't it? So in this way, reflection is like that. That's why it's called Maya. Sorry, I think I got locked out just now due to some connection problem. So I'm back. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. So I'll share my file again. Okay, so continuing. So Krishna says, but with determination, let me just check the recording. Yeah, okay, it's going on. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. So how do we escape from this illusion? In order to escape from...
Excuse me, Prabhu, we are not seeing your share screen.
Oh, okay, sorry. Let me try to share it again. How about now? Can you see it?
No, we don't see an image there.
Yes, Prabhu, can be seen.
Oh, you can see it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's now come, yeah.
Okay, all right. Thanks for that. Okay, so therefore Krishna says we must cut down this tree. So this is the tree of our illusion, the tree of action. This is the karma which is entrapping us. So therefore we need to cut down these fruitive activities, this continuous desire to search for various different actions. How do we cut it down? We have to cut it down with the weapon of detachment. So that means, just like here, I'm showing you how do we cut a tree. We cut a tree with an axe. So this axe is called detachment. So one must learn to develop detachment. So that's why Krishna in the beginning, he recommended karma yoga. So karma yoga means, yes, you are here in this world, but you are here already. Okay, we are all here. So, and since we are here, we have our dharma. We need to do certain dharma in order to not get further trapped. And this dharma is given by scripture. Yes, but do not do this dharma because you want to enjoy the fruits. Do the dharma simply for the sake of duty if you follow the jnana path, or do it for my sake. Dedicate the fruits to me. In this way, one will learn to develop detachment from trying to enjoy in this material creation. So that's why detachment is important. So with the detachment, when one gets, so that's the reason the nature of the world is such. Sometimes there's frustration, sometimes there's happiness. So it's the idea that we will eventually learn to develop detachment. The world works the way it works It's trying to eventually teach us that, look here, you're bound to be frustrated. So as we realize this after many births, after being slapped left and right by the three modes of material nature, when one is wise, one understands, why am I going through this suffering? I'm not looking for it, but it's coming anyway. So when he starts thinking this way, he will come in contact with this. The Lord will arrange for one person to come in contact with this knowledge. And by this knowledge, together with the weapon of knowledge and detachment, it's possible to cut down this karma. So that's what Krishna is saying. Karma is not eternal. It can be cut down, uprooted. So therefore, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns. So detachment alone is not sufficient. Simply detaching, but then, we will wither and die because we don't have any source of happiness. So when we let go something, we have to hold on to something else. We cannot just flounder aimlessly. So therefore, Krishna says, understand that there is the real source of happiness. This is just a reflection that there is real happiness, the supreme abode, my abode. Come back to me. So therefore, we need to understand more about his abode, the supreme Lord of that abode, and the process of how we can attain that abode. Therefore, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns. So, and then Krishna continues, and there surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So now Krishna is indicating about his status as Purusha Uttama, the Supreme Lord. So that's why this is also called Purushottama Yoga. So who can understand Purushottama? So then Krishna will indicate from the next verse onwards. Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivrita kamaha dvandver vimuktaha sukha dukkha samyair gachanti amudaha padam avyayam tat. Translation. Those who can learn to understand Purushottama. So this is a bit more of an extension of the Sthita Prajna, talking about that person who can, one has to attain this status before one is able to fully understand Brahman, Paramatma, and here specifically Purushottama, the Supreme Lord. So Krishna says, those who are free from false prestige, that means thinking that we are the doer, everything runs because of me. If not for me, this would not have been so. We have to understand that the Lord is the doer, we are the instrument. So to come to that state, so therefore free from false prestige, free from illusion. How do we become free from illusion? We have to learn to see the world through the eyes of scripture. So that's the understanding. And then in this way, we will understand what is spirit and what is matter, what is real and what is illusion. And from false association, associating with this material creation. One who understands the eternal, that means they must know the nature of spirit, that we are Atma. So it began with that knowledge. Who are done with material lust. So that's it, I'm done with material lust. So one who has come to that level, now I have served Maya for millions of lifetimes, let me now serve Krishna. So, that kind of understanding. Or one who is freed from dualities of happiness and distress, one who is equipoised. So here one can be qualified to understand further, and who unbewildered, no longer disturbed by illusion, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person and attain to that eternal kingdom. Don't worry if you are not any of these. So this is why we go through the process, and this process of devotional service or yoga will bring us to this level. Simply by, that's why it's very important to take this process seriously So then we can reach this platform, which is transcending the three modes of material nature. So then Krishna talks about the material. Okay, we've spoken about the material world and its network of karma and desire. So he's called this the network, the banyan tree, the upside down banyan tree network. So we need to develop the vision to see the world for what it really is. It is simply a reflection. There is no real happiness in this place. This is called dukkha alayam. Nothing but a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. With vision comes knowledge and thus determination for liberation, right? Emancipation. And then Krishna says, while you are going through this understanding, you cannot just renounce. You must develop attachment for higher taste. Just like if we want to give up a lower taste, if let's say we are addicted to a particular, let's say we want to give up meat eating, for example, because we are so addicted to eating meat, right? We may find it difficult to give up. So therefore, okay, there's soya and all that. So people want to shift to vegetarian soya or things like that. And then eventually when one tastes prasadam, when one becomes addicted to prasadam, so one realizes that, what I have liked before is nothing compared to what I'm liking now. So because he has developed a taste for higher things, just like a baby, did we all grow up eating right from birth very interesting food or what? What did we eat when we were babies? We ate basically sludge, right? Gruel or porridge. Basically, they will take all the vegetables and blend it together into a puree or a soup, and then they feed it, and that's how we grew. But as we developed taste, slowly we developed higher taste. Then we gave up the lower taste. Now if we eat that kind of food which we ate when we were babies, right, we will not like that food because we have developed higher taste. So in the same way, we can give up this lower material taste when we develop an attachment towards a higher taste. We can teach ourselves, just like who taught us to learn to eat spicy food? You give a baby spicy food, see what it tells you, right? But somehow over the years, somehow we have learned to eat the spicy food, or certain types of food which is not proper, or even drinking liquor. How does a person learn to drink liquor? It's so horrible, the taste. It smells horrible, it tastes horrible. So eventually they get attached to it. So taste can be trained, liking can be trained. So association is very important to train our likings. So in the same way, we can also learn to like higher taste. So in this way, when we learn to develop higher taste, we can easily give up the lower taste. So that's the idea here. So then Krishna says, therefore, you need to understand about me, Purushottama. When you develop an attachment to me, Purushottama, then very easily you can give up all these other things. So that is the path of bhakti. So 15.4 to 15.6, Krishna talks about that. Then from 15.7 to 15.11, Krishna talks about the situation of the conditioned soul. All of us, we are all conditioned in this material creation. So he gives a bit more detail about our situation here. This is knowledge to help us to understand our position. So then he will say, Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manasastani nindriyani prakriti stani karshati. So we are these living entities. We are all basically a spark of the Amsa, which is, we are all Amsas, part and parcel of the spiritual Lord, the Supreme Lord. We are all spirit, just like the Lord is spirit. So, and we are all part and parcel of the Lord. Small parts and small parcels. So what's the proof? This is the proof. The verse 15.7. Mama amso. Mama means my amsa, part and parcel. My amsas, who are the amsas? The jivas. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Eternal, sanatana. So never do they merge into the Supreme Lord. It is they are eternally separated. Jiva, Bhuta, Sanatana. Right? They are part and parcel of the Lord. And then what happens? Because we have taken birth in this material creation, because we have come into Prakriti, from the spiritual energy, we have come into the inferior material energy, which is Prakriti. So Prakriti Sthani Karshati. We have become and we have taken our birth here. So due to being conditioned by Prakriti, the three modes of material nature, which is conditioning the jivas within the body made out of Prakriti, we are spirit soul. We are not part of this Prakriti, but we have been captured. We have been encapsulated inside this material body with the subtle body and the material body. So due to being conditioned in this way by the three modes of material nature, by illusion and all that, what happens? So we are all conditioned, just like how rain enters into the atmosphere, it touches the ground and it becomes muddy. So this mud is like the conditioning that the pure water which comes from rain has been covered with. So due to this conditioned life, what happens? Mama sastanindriyani. So if you remember this model also, how the jivas are part of the Lord Ishvara. So what happens? The jiva enters into Prakriti under the purview of time and he performs karma, activity. So in this way, the jiva performs karma and activity and he gets trapped life after life after life under the purview of Kala. So therefore, Krishna says, being conditioned in this material life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. And then Krishna continues, the living entity in this material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. So this is an important point also. We have heard in chapter 2 before already how we are taking life after life. So many verses that we already mentioned in chapter 2. So how does the soul move from one body to another body? Here it says, just like how the air carries aroma. The air which will blow from when the breeze comes from the rose garden. We will feel the air and we will also smell the rose fragrance. The same air also carries the rubbish, if it comes from the rubbish heap, when the rubbish truck passes over our house, you will smell the foul smell of the rubbish. So, but it doesn't mean that when we smell the rubbish, are we contaminated? It's not that we have to take a bath. It's just that we will close our nose and we will move away, isn't it? So very subtle. So in the same way, just like how the fragrance is carried by air, in the same way, the soul is carried by the subtle body. Remember, we have two bodies, subtle body and gross body. So when the gross body is broken down, then the subtle body carries the soul. You can think of it also like, your computer is like your body. And then you store your data in the cloud. If you store your data in the internet and in the cloud, that is like your subtle body. So when your computer crashes, when somebody pours water into your computer and your computer breaks down, at least you can say, okay, everything is not lost because it's still in the cloud. All the data is backed up there, or like your phone. So in this way, and the intelligence is linked to your identity. So the soul is like the identity. So in this way, when your phone breaks, you just get a different phone and then you download all your data again, and then you can continue from where you left off. So this, in the same way, the body also, the soul also takes different births. So the soul is carried by the subtle body, just like the fragrance is carried by the air. And thus he takes one body, one kind of body, and again quits it to take another. And then the next verse, the living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So this is, and why is this the case? How do we decide what kind of, it says here, we obtain a certain type of tongue, ear, nose. These are all panchendriyas, right? Indriyas, for us to enjoy, or for us to perceive enjoyment in a certain way. And this is affected according to our karma and our impressions. Remember, the subtle body comes with us. So therefore, the impressions and all that is still there. It's still there within the subtle body. So it creates these desires, it creates these feelings, the impressions. Why is it we get attracted with a certain type of activity, or why is it we get attracted with something? Some people have certain likings. So it's all due to our past impressions. And also, even in our current life, also we are developing impressions, but some things we are surprised. Why? Like, we have, people who are, we have the LGBTQ community. Why some people are gay, why some people develop these kind of feelings, why some people develop that kind of attractions. We have all kinds of things. We have LGBTQ is one thing, but we also have zoophilia, necrophilia, fetishes, people who enjoy dead bodies, people who enjoy with animals, so, and people who like to all kinds of things are there. So some people who are sinful in their previous lives, they get this kind of impressions locked within their brain, and if they're not careful, these impressions develop again, and then if it's unrestricted, it goes on. So these are the ways it happens. So what is the factor here? The factor is karma and also desire, which is carried by our impressions, life after life after life. So in this way, we get a certain set of body, gross elements acquired our panchendriyas, our karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, and then our subtle body, our software, our impressions, our mind, intelligence, false ego, it combines with this gross body. And then we try to enjoy these sense objects in this material creation. So this is what happens here. And then Krishna says, and whose eyes are trained, one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. So that's where transcendental knowledge comes. So we are able to see all these things for what it really is, and not fall prey for the illusion. So this cycle of birth and death is actually an invisible prison. It is like a prison. The prison bars are like the three modes of material nature. It's like the rope which has bound us within this continuous birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. So Krishna says the material world and its network of karma and desire, we covered this already, conditioned jiva. So this is what we have spoken about. So jivas are eternal fragments of the Lord, transmigration of the soul within Prakriti. So it talks about how the soul moves from one body to another. And the yogi or the bhakta who's endeavoring in this process, because of knowledge, he is able to see all this very clearly. So the key is knowledge. How do we escape from this prison? The escape from this prison with knowledge, then we will know how to act, right? We already know we can break down these bars of this prison by detachment towards material activities, and at the same time attachment towards Purushottama, the Supreme Lord. So that will release us. So understanding this point, Krishna speaks further about Purushottama Krishna, our eternal well-wisher, 1512 to 1515. So before that, just to understand how do we get this knowledge, how to understand this knowledge. This knowledge about all this we cannot get from mundane material situations. So how do we get this knowledge? Now imagine this is the entire creation. Under this entire creation, we will have what is called the material creation, and we will have the spiritual creation. In material creation, we have the conditioned person who is subjected to the three modes. And then in the spiritual world, we have God and of course, unlimited other living entities who are serving the Lord there. Now, if we want to know, being in this material creation for so long, right, not having an experience of what is happening in the spiritual world, how can this person ever hope to understand this Supreme Lord? Can he do it with his senses? Just by the power of his senses? Obviously not. So this is what senses we can't understand. So people, the scientists are trying to see God. Can you show me God? I won't believe unless you can show me God. No? So they think this way. They're trying to identify everything with the senses. With logic, can we understand the Lord with logic? We can try. The logic will help us to come closer, but ultimately, even with logic, we cannot understand the real picture. We cannot possibly understand the full picture of what's happening. So therefore, there is no way science, which is bound by this material world, or people who are imagining, creating philosophy based on their figment of their own imagination, can ever hope to manufacture religion. So therefore, religion cannot be manufactured. So what is the hope? Absolute knowledge, which is resting at the feet of the Lord, can only be revealed to us if it descends from God, it descends to the material world. From spiritual world, it descends. So that's why this parampara system is called the disciplic succession, the descending process, where knowledge is descended. It's not the other way around. So this process where the knowledge is descended is also called Shabda. Shabda means hearing from authority. Remember, the first process is to hear. So when we hear, and not simply whimsically hear, we have to hear from authority. That is called Shabda. So this authority, what is this authority? Authority has to come from parampara. So Krishna says, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye, Srimad Bhagavatam. He says, this Vedic knowledge, therefore, for the benefit of all those who are in this material creation, he imparted this to the chief being in this material creation, to Brahma. The Vedic knowledge was revealed by the Supreme Person within the heart of the first created being, Brahma. And in this way, and also in many other ways, this Vedic wisdom comes down in disciplic succession through oral reception. So that was in the previous ages. But in Kali Yuga, human beings do not have that capability of simply remembering everything with photographic memory. So therefore, written down. This oral tradition was written down in the beginning of Kali Yuga by Krishna Dvaipana Vyasa, an incarnation, again an incarnation of the Lord, not simply any sage, not simply any one or two sage. This is the direct incarnation of the Lord. He again came down through the parampara, right, from Brahma, from Narada, and then from Vyasa. Again, the Lord came as a disciple through Vyasa, and then he continued this parampara. And then again later as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then continued the parampara. So this is one parampara. The other three paramparas are also there. And then to understand the splendor of this, remember, we want to develop attraction for the Supreme Lord. So to understand the Supreme Lord, Krishna speaks a bit more about himself. 15:12. So he says, the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. So this is rather similar to the Vibhuti Yoga. Remember in chapter 10, I think, Vibhuti Yoga. So again, the Lord re-emphasizes this point. To understand how we can learn to see the Lord in everything. If we see beauty, if we see how the sunlight is so wonderfully destroying darkness, so we can remember the Supreme Lord. That's why the sun is also called Surya Narayana. So when we say the Gayatri mantras, the first verse of the Gayatri mantra refers to Surya Narayana, the Supreme Lord. And remember also in the universal form, it is described that the sun and the moon are like the eyes of the Lord. The left eye is the moon, the right eye is the sun. So the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. So the moon is very beautiful. In Vedic understanding, if you want to give a compliment to someone, if you say someone is very beautiful, you can say you are like the moon. So, Shashi Kala. So the name Shashi is moon. So that means one is beautiful like the moon. Splendor of the moon, Shashi Kala. Also from me. Splendor of fire is also very beautiful. The splendor, the shine, the effulgence of fire is also from me. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So I mentioned this before. The role of the moon, one of the many roles of the moon is to cool down the mind, because the moon represents the mind. It also produces juice and nourishment and vigor to all living entities. And the Lord continues, I am also, if the planets are staying in orbit, it is due to my presence, my energy. And I am also the fire of digestion. So the Lord comes. So in this way, the Lord shows us, just for our benefit, how all he comes and expands himself and how all he provides for us. So he's already providing for us. So everything is there. It is simply our disobedience and our adharmic or impious acts in the past which have caused us to go through the type of suffering that we are going through now. So all we have to do is simply take up this process of devotion for the Lord, and the Lord is ready to just erase all those sins for us. So that when he knows that someone is trying to reach him, he becomes very, very merciful. And he's able to close one eye, two eyes to all the previous problems. So that is the power. And then the Lord says, I am also the air of life. The soul, just like how the soul is being carried by the, the subtle body. So while it's in the gross body, it is being suspended by the 5 type of prana, the air. And the Lord says, I am that life air, which is so important for us. Without air, we can't even live for a few seconds. So then, this is a very famous verse, chapter 15:15. So Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridisha nivishto matta smritirjnanam apohanam cha vedaischa sarvair aham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me. So here it says, Hridi Sranivishto. Hridi means in the heart. Sarvasya, in all living entities' heart, I am seated. And from me come remembrance. Mata, from me comes smriter. Smaranam comes from the root word smriter. Smriti means smaranam, which means remembrance. Jnanam, knowledge. Apohanam cha, and forgetfulness also. So Vedaischa sarve. So by all the Vedas, Vedaischa sarve, from all, sarva, from all the Vedas, aham, I am to be known, Vedyo, to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So it's a very nice verse, which goes to show how the Lord, everything comes from him directly. If we are remembering, it is by his grace. If we are forgetting, it is also by his grace or according to our karma, which is due to his sanction or for our desire. So therefore, this is what happens. So remember again how the jivas, the living entity, right? there are two types of living entities. So Krishna continues to speak further. He says, Dwau imau purushav loke. Dwau comes from the word du, dwa. Dwa means two. There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible, the Shara and the Akshara. Shara means those who are fallible. That means those who can be overcome by illusion, and those who cannot be overcome by illusion. So, but we will talk more about that in level 2 in detail. So this basically, as I mentioned previously, the living entities who looked upon the Lord and they saw him as the most lovable and the object of ultimate worship, just like when Lakshmi Devi came from the ocean of milk, when she saw the Lord, she wanted to only serve him. So that is the type of jivas who are called akshara, infallible, completely liberated. And they are situated in the antaranga shakti, the spiritual energy of the superior energy of the Lord. And in this way, they are compatible within that situation, and they remain with the Lord, suffused with bhakti. Whereas the other jiva, the two types, right? The other one is called shara, the fallible. So why they became fallible? They became fallible because they did not develop bhakti. And because they did not develop bhakti, which is their constitutional position of the soul, he developed instead envy. So when he saw the Lord, the first thing he saw the Lord, he saw, whoa, so powerful, I also want to be like him. So therefore, he developed kama. So from envy came kama, desire, lust. And that lust became the upside down banyan tree, right? How did it happen? Because of this, the soul in this situation is not compatible with the antaranga shakti, not compatible with the superior energy. So he had to come over to Prakriti. This karma, he had to come over to Prakriti. So he moved to Prakriti. From the spiritual energy, he had to move to the material energy. Excuse me. So when he moves into the Prakriti, then he gets entangled by the material energy of the Lord. He gets covered by illusion. Therefore, he's called Shara, because the material energy of the Lord is very powerful. So he becomes overwhelmed because he's just a droplet, just an amsa, small part. So he becomes overwhelmed and covered by the energy of the Lord. And in this way, he becomes illusioned and he becomes conditioned. And then because he's searching for this karma, this desire, he searches downwards, looking for the pleasure in the upside down banyan tree, searching and searching for life after life. So therefore, Krishna says, besides these two, there is the greatest living personality. So the jivas are one thing, but then Krishna clearly, this is a very important verse, Uttama Purushastva tu Anya. So clearly he tells there is a third living entity. So the jivas is one thing, the infallible and the fallible, but there is a clear distinction between the third living entity. And the third living entity is the Supreme Lord himself. He is the Purushottama. So that's why this chapter is called Purushottama Yoga. To understand that there is a third person, Ishvara, who is beyond the two types of jivas. The Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. So he describes a bit about himself here. And then this verse, Yasmad Sharam Atito Aham Aksharat Api Chottamaha Ato Asmi Loke Vedecha Pratita Purushottamaha. So the word Purushottama again. Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible. So he's saying, I am beyond both the jivas, the two types of jivas, the Akshara jiva and the Shara jiva, the infallible and the fallible. I'm beyond them even, because I am the greatest. Vibhu, right? He's the greatest. And I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person, Purusha Uttama. So it's a person. This is the Bhagavan realization of the Lord. And then he goes further. Yo mam evam asamuddho janati purushottamam. Again Purushottamam. Sa sarva vidbhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. And why is this important for us to know? All these points of what we just described in this Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna says, whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. Right? Sa sarva bhajati mam. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata. Sarva bhavena Bharata. So this is the outcome of knowing this aspect about the Supreme Lord, Purushottama. One who knows this Purushottama Yoga, his doubts will be cleared and his determination will be very strong and fixed, and he will be able to dedicate his life towards attaining this Supreme Lord. And this is the last verse. This chapter is very short also, only 20 verses. Iti guya tamam shastram idam uktam maya nagah etad buddhva buddhiman syat krita krityascha bharata. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures. So Krishna is saying, therefore, you see, there are many things which is described in the scriptures. And amongst the Vedas, 1/4 of it speaks about the ultimate, the Brahman. And then very little verses in that Vedas which talks about the Brahman, it actually speaks about there is something even higher than Brahman, the Supreme Lord, which is the Purushottama. And therefore it is confidential, it is kept. So very few places one will find it. But here in the Gita, he's directly revealing it very nicely for the pleasure of the Lord. Why? Because Arjuna is his devotee and friend. He does not have asuya. He is not envious. He is anasuya. So for that reason, he is revealing this full ultimate secret, the most confidential aspect. So whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So that is the ultimate last word in the process of yoga. That's why any yoga process is perfected when it comes towards bhakti. This is the evidence for this, for that point. So we continue. So these are the subtopics we discussed. The material world and its network of karma and desire, the conditioned jiva, and about Purushottama Krishna. And where in Purushottama Krishna, he talks about his splendor, the supreme maintainer, Purusha Uttama, the ultimate goal of existence, and ultimately the fruit. I forgot to put the last subtopic here. Oh, it's here already. For from 19 to 20. The ultimate goal of existence. So the ultimate goal from 5.12 to 5.15 is Purushottama Krishna. From 15.16 to 18 is Purusha Uttama and the Purusha, and ultimately is the goal of existence. So that is what we have covered in this chapter. So before we end, I was thinking, since we will be, it's still a bit early, I will, not early, it's just on time, about 10 more minutes we have. So I was thinking we have now covered 15 chapters already of the Bhagavad Gita. I will give a brief description about the biography of our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, the person who had translated this Bhagavad Gita and been instrumental in changing the lives of many people in this world. So I'd like to take this opportunity to glorify him. So Srila Prabhupada is born on Krishna Janmashtami. He was born the day right after Krishna Janmashtami. So that day is called Nandotsava, where Nanda Maharaj throws a festival to celebrate the appearance of Krishna. because Krishna was born in midnight, right? So the next morning becomes the celebration festival. In the year 1896, Srila Prabhupada was born in Kolkata, at that time known as Calcutta, right? His father is Gaur Mohan De, mother is Rajini, and even at the age of 5, by the time he was 5 years old, both the parents were very great Vaishnavas. They were following all the aspects. They were, nice Vaishnava family he was born in. And in this way, he was from an early age taught about how to worship the Lord. So devotion and all these things is very much part of it. In fact, when he was 5 years old, he wanted to so much have his own Radha Yatra. So therefore, he got his father to build a cart for him. And then he had his deities at 5 years old. And then he worshipped these deities. And in this way, all the children in the neighborhood, they took part in this Radha Yatra. It became a children Radha Yatra. And even when he was born, an astrologer said that this child will not be an ordinary child. He will travel to the world when he is 60 years old plus, and he will establish 108 temples all around the world, and he will bring Radha Yatra to all over the world. So that was a prediction made in Calcutta at that time. So anyway, when he was born, he was called Abhay Charan. That was his name. So the AAC Bhaktivedanta stands for Abhaya Charanara. That's his sannyas name. But he was born when his name was given was Abhay. So Abhay was his name when he was young. So later, Abhay grew up. He went to a prestigious school, in British school, Scottish Churches School. And over there, he studied with the British people. So his English was very good. So he was trained in Vedic philosophy, but at the same time, he never lost touch of it, even when he went to the English school. So he was well educated in that sense. And then later on, he met his spiritual master in before 1932. Actually, in an earlier time, when he was in college itself, he met his spiritual master. And that time he was a Gandhian. He wanted to follow Gandhi movement. And he thought, he should have independence. But when he met this spiritual master for the first time, the spiritual master was telling about, his spiritual master was Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, a very, very great personality on his own right. And then he told that actually this mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to pass this knowledge to the world is utmost urgency. We have to give this. But then Abhay Charan will say, but India is conquered, we need to develop independence. But when he said that, his guru was able to immediately tell him, defeat that point. He says, no, it is urgency, utmost urgency. It cannot wait. Then he gave this famous statement, politicians will come and go, but politics will always remain. So we cannot wait for that. For this Krishna consciousness is urgent. So, and Prabhupada at that time was so impressed by his guru, and then it affected his, he changed his personality, he changed his motivations. Then later he got initiated in 1932 at the age of 26. He accepted him as his guru. And then he became a householder man. He was having a business. He used to do a pharmaceutical business. And in this way, and he only met his guru about 6 times, I think. 6 or 8 times possibly in his entire, because that time it's not easy to meet. He had to go to a different state. And then in this way, eventually, I'm cutting a lot of things short here. Eventually in 1959, he took sannyas at the age of 60 plus, 60, I think 62. So, and this is Prabhupada, and this is his guru, and when he took sannyas. At that time, his spiritual master had already left the world. And this is the disciple of his guru who was able to give him sannyas initiation. And after sannyas initiation, this is the room where he used to stay in the Radha in Damodar temple. And this is an early picture of Srila Prabhupada after taking sannyas, how he used to live very simply. And here we bought over that room, and now we have put something like a museum. So what did he do during that time? He used to print books. He used to write a lot of articles. And then he used to write a magazine called Back to Godhead magazine. And he used to personally write it, typeset it, and go and publish it. He will walk all the way, almost for 1 to 2 hours he will walk before he reaches the publication house where he will publish his magazines. And then after that, he will go and distribute them in the hot sun. So this used to be his daily activity. And in the evenings, he used to translate Srimad Bhagavatam into English, because that was the order of his spiritual master. His spiritual master will tell him always, if you can preach to the West, go and because you're good in English, so speak to the Western world. So in that way, he started translating Srimad Bhagavatam into English. And later on, as he was getting older, he had already translated 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he had a dream one day that his guru told him, it's now time for you to move to the West. So then he thought, what can I do? I'm just a simple sannyas. So then he thought, okay, I have a friend. There's this person called Sumati Murarji. So this Sumati Murarji was a Gujarati lady, a widow, and she was controlling she was actually the head of the board of the steamship company, a cargo steamship company in Calcutta, which would travel to US. The cargo ships will go. And he thought, I can somehow convince this person, Sumati Murarji, to give me a passage through her cargo ship so that I can reach America. And then, but this Sumati Murarji didn't want to do that. 3 times he will come and ask her, and 3 times also she will say, no, I'm not going to let you go. You are old, you are 60 plus. And do you know how horrible it is in the United States? You do not know anybody there. Then she asked him, do you know anyone? No, I don't know anybody. And then why do you want to go there? Then it's because my guru told me to go there to preach. I have to do it. I'm at the end of my life. I cannot do this without satisfying my guru's desire. And she still didn't want to know. I cannot bear this in my conscience. You go there, you will die. The winter will kill you. You have no vegetarian food over there. How will you survive? You have no money. So like this, few times she did not concede, but eventually Prabhupada, he came again and again, and he asked in so many nice ways, and finally she accepted. Okay, fine. If you are insisting so much, I will give you this passage. You take this ship, Jaladuta. So the Prabhupada became very happy, and then he thought, what can I do? I will just go. So he went into this Jaladuta. This is the ship. It was a cargo ship, and he had a small cabin. And in this cabin, he brought with him his Bhagavatam books. The translation, he carried his bag full of this Bhagavatam book, a few sets of it. And then he also brought with him a bag of potato and rice. And then he had about 40 rupees equivalent with him. And in this way, he stayed. And it was a 2 weeks journey. And while in this ship, he suffered from seasickness. There was storm, and it was tossing and turning, and he couldn't eat his cooking. It became very difficult for him. And in fact, he even suffered 2 strokes. So after going through 2 strokes, he thought, if this goes on, I don't think I will survive the 3rd stroke. And then on that night, he dreamed. And that night he dreamed, and then what he dreamed, Krishna came rowing a boat in his dream, and then smiling at him, and then he went off. And then the next day, the sea became so smooth. So even the ship captain, a man of 40 years of experience, he has given the statement that in the Atlantic, which is usually a very rough sea, was never so smooth in his 40 years of experience as a captain. So the sea became very smooth, and then eventually he reached Massachusetts, Boston Harbor, and the money that he had, whatever little money, it was only about 40 rupees equivalent, and that he came and he landed. So here's a picture, an artist's impression of him landing in that Boston Pier. And then when he landed in the Boston Pier, he wrote a poem at that time. He said, at that time, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know to turn left or to turn right. Now, this is a person who came from Vrindavan, India, alone, just with books and one small contact he had. He managed to get someone to sponsor him through a very distant relation. And this person said he lived in a different state. So, and then he sent this contact to him, and eventually he came, and alone he took a bus in US at that time, and he moved to a different state to meet this particular person who was a householder who had married a Western lady over there. So like that he stayed. So this was the early days when Prabhupada was moving up, when Prabhupada was alone and he was trying to spread his movement. He stayed in that family's house, Sally Agarwal and Tom Agarwal, I think his name was. So then later, but he thought that this was not, I couldn't really, he was giving his classes to the people around there, but it's a small town, it's somewhere in Detroit. So it wasn't really the center, and he was thinking, I need to go to New York. So then he went to New York. He took a bus, he went to New York. Somehow he got some donations from the people over there. And he went to New York. And in this way, he rented a small, tiny room, which is in the slums of New York. And in this way, what he would do, daily he will go to the park nearby. It's called the Tompkins Square Park, where a lot of people used to gather. And in this Tompkins Square Park, under the tree is still there. And he used to sit there and he used to just take his two kartals and chant Hare Krishna. And in this way, somehow he attracted a few of these people. They were just impressed with the presence of Prabhupada. They used to call him Swamiji at that time. And then they would come, and then Prabhupada would invite them to his storefront. He had a small rented storefront of an old store. And here he used to cook himself, and about 10-15 people will come, and personally he will cook everything, a meal. He will give a class, he will chant Hare Krishna with them, and then he will give them prasadam with his own hands. So in this way, he won the hearts of these poor people. They were basically hippies who used to come, and one or two educated people also used to come at that time. So this is the storefront. It was called Matchless Gift, and people used to come. So like that, he went on for a few years, for a few months, and within 1 year, somehow he was able to give this message to all these people, and he somehow established ISKCON, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, is in 1966, just after 1 year going to, and at that time there were just a few people, just about 20 or so people who they said, okay, Prabhupada, Swamiji, I think you should have a society so that you can develop further. And Prabhupada was very far-sighted. He decided to name his society the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. And then people at that time was thinking, international? We are just a bunch of few people here in this. And then, but Prabhupada used to say, actually the temples are all there. Everything is there. I have this many temples, I have that many, everything, all these things are there. Only time is separating. He used to tell one person, that person said later on. So anyway, so therefore in 1966 it developed, and they asked him, why not God Consciousness, International Society of God Consciousness? Then Prabhupada didn't like that idea. No, Krishna is God. So international, he didn't want to little bit also give give in to this idea. So when we say God, then it becomes very impersonal, then all kinds of things, all kinds of ideas. So directly, he used the word International Society of Krishna Consciousness. And he didn't name it even after himself. So he got trustees to back him up, and he launched. And then from then onwards, simply magic started. So from the next few years, from New York, he went to San Francisco. The people who were helping him, they were so dedicated and so surrendered to him. They were so won over by his sacrifice and by his selflessness and by his persona and his teachings, that they were willing to give up everything and simply help Prabhupada to establish this movement. So then, therefore, the Hare Krishna explosion, miracle on 2nd Avenue. So between the years of 1966 to 1969, it spread in America in different beautiful ways. Here's a picture of how Prabhupada used to come to some yoga societies, and the disciples at that time will try to secure for him lectures where he can go and give lecture, or where he can simply go and chant. And there are a few people, prominent people like Allen Ginsberg, a famous poet and philosophist, who was at that time attracted to this, and he used to also host Prabhupada. So in this way, several places, and they used to do kirtan. So here is an example of one of the lectures where there were all these devotees who used to come and hear Prabhupada talk. So here's a small diminutive Bengali man, almost 70 years old, with heavy Indian accent, Bengali accent. And yet he was able to somehow attract all these people to come and simply listen to his Bhagavad Gita and to chant. So then as the movement grew, he sent his disciples to different parts of the world to open centers, Montreal. So they used to go, just family members, just a few of them, they will just go to London. Like that, 11 people went to London, and a few people went to Canada, and in different parts of the world. He wanted them to go to every part of the world. So, and then big explosion, big success. And finally, he was able to establish the first Radha Yatra in San Francisco. So he was, there's a very nice story of how the Radha Yatra even came place. But anyway, so he established the first Radha Yatra in San Francisco. And in this way, then he did the next Radha Yatra in New York. So this is basically the Radha Yatra in Puri. You can see so many thousands of people, the original Radha Yatra in Puri, India. And then after that, he was able to bring it to London. So for the first time in the world, Radha Yatra went beyond the shores of Puri, India, into different parts of the world. So this is Radha Yatra in London. So it said that the column of the Radha Yatra was so big that it was taller than Trafalgar Square's Nelson statue. So that was the main newspaper article that came. So which talked about it. So here you have a picture of George Harrison and the early group who, Yamuna Mataji, the singer of the Govinda Madhipurusham song, and all those people who came to push it in London. This is New York Radha Yatra during that time. And then also the first Russian Radha Yatra. So Prabhupada also went to Russia once, and somehow he was able to develop later on. This is later ages, later times. After Srila Prabhupada left, we can see Russian Radha Yatra, the first Russian Radha Yatra that took place there. So in this way, later the disciples, they were getting more and more purified. They were following the processes, and Prabhupada even initiated sannyas disciples. And these sannyas disciples will go to all the different parts of the world. They will go to communist countries. They will even sometimes get, tortured or get attacked by the governments. And they would brave all these things. And they, for the sake of Prabhupada's pleasure, they would do all these things just to spread the movement to different parts of the world. So if today there is success all over the parts of the world, from during those times, Iron Curtain, Russia, it wasn't easy. So Germany, Russia, even China, even until today, the devotees go undercover to China. So like that, different parts of the world, to even Iran. Prabhupada went to Iran, Israel, different aspects of the world. So in this way, between 1968 to 1977, he dictated a total of 22,000 pages of text. He created Back to Godhead magazine again, which was a monthly distributed magazine up to today. 1 million copies being sold at that time within the 1968 to 1977. He wrote 7,000 letters to his disciples, which was published in 5 volumes of books. And within Srimad Bhagavatam lectures alone, it was compiled into 11 volumes of books. He produced the Bhagavad Gita translation, compiled in 7 volumes of different other types of books. Conversations compiled in 42 volumes of books. Innumerable recordings. He established 108 temples and farm communities within just 12 years. So the prediction came true. He published 147 books, circled the globe 14 times, and changed the lives of 10,000 disciples during this period. And only in 11 years and at the age of 70 plus. And he used to sleep only 2 hours a day, each day, because he would spend his nighttime translating the books, daytime doing his seva and worship, afternoon doing his management, and just by writing letters, he managed the society from all over the world, just from one place. So this was the achievement of Srila Prabhupada. And even at the time of death, when he was about to leave the body, this is the picture of how he left the body. So he was still dictating Sri Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam was not completed, the translation. So he was doing the 10th canto. And at that time, even at the time of death, to the last breath, he was dictating Srimad Bhagavatam translation until he finally left the world. So this is, and this is Srila Prabhupada's legacy. So in this way, the movement is still moving on. It is now being managed by the combined, it's called the governing body of commissioners. So it's made up of many people, sannyasis and senior disciples and all that, who are holding on to the instructions of Prabhupada. So here we see and in every town and village. So it's not just big cities. We used to go to even small towns. This is a small town in Russia. So there is it's a remote place in Kamchatka. So like that, they are having these programs where it is being the mercy is being distributed. The holy name is being distributed in this. This is Ukraine. Sorry, this is Santiago, Chile, South America. So every continent has a presence, and almost every country, even Kenya, South Africa, Tanzania. So all these places. So this is a temple. This is the world headquarters of ISKCON, currently being built, the temple. And this is Prabhupada's memorial. This is the Ganga River. So this is in Mayapur, Calcutta, 100 kilometers north of Calcutta. And these are some of the farm communities. This is in New Vrajadam in New Jersey. So like that, there are many. There's some in Hungary. This one is in France. There's one in Italy. So farm communities where simple living, high thinking philosophy is being discussed. And here there are more pictures of the farm communities where cow protection is being taken care. The cows are being cared for, where they are not slaughtered and they are used for farming. So in this way, there are different, even in Malaysia, we have a farm. We have 2 farms in Malaysia where there are many activities which take place. So this is Prabhupada's memorial in Vrindavan. So in this way, there's also many books which are produced, and there is several 2 or 3 movies which are produced, and documentary. We call it docu-movies. So, and there's also a serial, which is produced, 2 serials which talk about Prabhupada's life, and his biography is also there in the books. Okay, so with that, just a bit of appreciation of Srila Prabhupada, who has taken the trouble to spread this, by whose mercy the Bhagavad Gita is being spread all over the world, and this knowledge is being given to everyone also. So this material, so again, coming to our takeaway, so we have spoken about this chapter 15. So material world is a mere pale reflection of the spiritual world. Purushottama Krishna, our ever well-wisher, one who knows this has full and complete knowledge. So this was some of the takeaways that we can use. And next, tomorrow, we will go into chapter 16. Also a very interesting. Chapter 16 and 17 will become quite interesting and very practical for our life. We will see a lot of things, a lot of details about the three modes of nature and the divine and the demoniac and things like that. So stay tuned for that. So we end with this verse. Srinavatam granatam viryani udamani harirmuhu yata sujataya bhaktya sudeyan natma vritadibihi. One who constantly hears and chants the holy name of the Lord and hears and chants about his activities can very easily attain the platform of pure devotional service, which can cleanse the dirt from one's heart. So this is what yoga and particularly bhakti will do. It's going to clean our heart from all these impurities and desires and feelings by performing this chanting. How we can clean our heart? We can clean it by simply hearing and chanting the holy name of the Lord constantly. So therefore, daily. So, and which can cleanse the dirt from one's heart. One cannot achieve such purification merely by observing vows and performing Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, because those are basically for karma kanda, for attaining our own desires and satisfaction based on the scripture. This is to purify ourselves so that we can go back to Krishna. So this is bhakti. It is separate. So let's end this with reciting this together. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Tat Sat. Srila Bhagavad Gita Ki, Sri Krishna Bhagavan Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki. So if there are any questions, we can just look at it. I don't see anything in the chat. Anyone wants to raise any points or say anything?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Guru.
I have a question regarding Siro Dakasha Vishnu. As I know, Siro means milk, right? So Siro Dakasha Vishnu is lying on the milk ocean, but at the same time, how he enters as a Paramatma?
Expands further. So Shiro Dakashi, all the Paramatmas are the localized expansions of the Shiro Dakashai Vishnu. So this Shiro Dakashai Vishnu is Shiro means the ocean of milk. So he's lying in the ocean of milk. So this is called Shweta Dvip. And that is that's where the Devatas, they go to pray for the Lord to come and appear. So this is the localized position.
But then how to differentiate with the Garbho Dakasha Vishnu?
The Shiro Dakashai Vishnu is himself an expansion of Garbho Dakashai Vishnu. Garbho Dakashai Vishnu is, Shiro Dakashai Vishnu is situated within a local situation. We will talk about this in level 2, Prabhu. I think some of the we'll discuss at that point. Okay.
Sure, Prabhu. Okay.
Don't want to confuse people here. It's a bit technical. So this is about the expansions of the Lord. Okay. All right. If there's nothing further, thank you very much, everybody. So once again, happy Vijaya Dashami, and we are now waiting for the onset of Kartik Masa, Damodar Masa and Kartik Masa. We will talk about that also later on. So anyway, for now, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it that you are staying so long and everything. I'm sorry about that. Can't help it, but I want to do the best I can while we have the time. Okay, Hare Krishna. I'll see you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.